you all know, today will be recorded so that we can kind of share with others who maybe were not able to make it right on time. But I'm going to go ahead and get started with it being 4:01 here on the Pacific Coast. I am based in LA. I will be your instructor for tonight. My name is Jean. I've been teaching history for an embarrassing a long amount of time, especially the APs. That's kind of where I've made my specialty or my niche. I'm happy to be here with all of you. I think we have about, let's see, 8 or 9 folks in here. It looks like 8 folks in here. So please feel free to raise your hands, use the webinar chat if you guys have any questions. And I'm also happy to, kind of unmute anybody. You guys need to be unmuted so that you guys can participate more. Oh, APUSH. How many of you guys, by show of hands, just so I can also double check that you guys can all hear me, have enjoyed your APUSH course this year? Yeah, I'm hoping all of the hands go up, even if you didn't enjoy them. Yeah, okay, good, great, fantastic, good audio checks here. Good. How many of you are like sophomores? Typically, this is a sophomore class or a junior class. So how many of you guys are sophomores? Yeah, Molly, good. I see you. Anybody else? Juniors? Any juniors in the house? Perfect. Great. So lots of juniors. Okay. How many of you guys are based on the East Coast? Show of hands. Oh, you're a freshman. Wow. They let you take APUSH as a freshman. Congrats. That's probably the youngest I've heard, actually. But way to tackle the material early on. Great. How many of you guys are, where are you guys located? Just put your time zone in the chat for me so I can get a sense of who's using the chat and able to get there. What time zones? You guys finding the chat button? It's up at the top of your screen. Okay, Mountain Time, great, thank you. Took a few minutes there. Eastern Time, great. Mountain Time, Eastern Time. We'll be ending pretty late for you on a Friday night, so gotta get you guys out here. Great, Eastern, fantastic. Well, welcome. I am on the Pacific Time Zone, so I'm based in LA. Again, my name is Jean. I'll be your instructor for tonight, and hopefully we have a good time reviewing for the APUSH exam here in a couple of weeks, okay? I'm going to give you guys as many tips and tricks. There will be a light content review, and I say light, meaning I will throw up a bunch of topics. It is not by any means extensive to what the test will cover. So please make sure that you guys are using whatever study guides your teacher's giving you, any sort of AP books that you guys have bought, any other course materials that you guys want to review, to make sure you have a strong handle on just the content alone, okay? Tonight, I'm going to spend most of our time around testing strategies, what to expect, how to answer questions, how to write essays, because I feel like that's more of a value add. You can go read a book on your own, right? I don't want to sit here and teach you everything that you should have learned this year in your APUSH course, but I do want to tell you how to apply it to the test, and that's where our specialty lies here at Enhanced. Any questions before we get started? Perfect. My name is Jean. I went to UC Berkeley for history. I have my bachelor's in history. I absolutely love it. I think that it makes us a little bit wiser. I actually did my thesis in U.S. history. Definitely kind of a bread and butter for me, and I've been teaching APUSH for about 15 years now. Hopefully I can give you guys some tidbits. Everybody, raise your hand if you guys can see the screen that I am sharing, the presentation. Okay, great. Perfect. Check. Okay, love it. All right. APUSH, here we go. So tonight our agenda really is, we'll kind of go over a little bit of the test structure. Some of you may have already gotten this in class, but I just want to make sure we're all on the same page. Basically, how is this test structured? What are you going to walk into? How is it scored, etc. Again, we'll do a very light content overview. Okay, and it is really just an overview. It is not a full-on review session of all of the topics you need to know. We would be here for 6 hours or more if that were the case. Then I spare all of you that and give you kind of the big topics that we see a lot on this test, right? Like if you don't know these topics, take note of them. Go ahead, read up on them, Google them, look up in your textbook, whatever it might be, look up in your notes, really make sure you've got that content down. Then we'll get into the nitty gritty, the meat and potatoes here, which is the study strategies, right? kind of what to expect on the test, how to respond to essay questions, how to, like what are they looking for as graders, etc. And then resources. I'll leave you guys with a resource page so that when you do get this deck, you can go back and use that resource page. It is oftentimes some of the best resources that I've used in the past to really help my students study, but also help me succeed as an instructor as well. So I used to be a grader for the APUSH exam. So essays are kind of where, kind of it makes or breaks your score. So we'll be spending most of our time there tonight. Did you have a question you wanted to throw into the chat, or I can unmute you? Okay, let's move on. So the test structure, some of you, again, might have already reviewed some of this, taken bits and pieces of it in your class, but let's take an overview of what you're tackling. There are two primary sections of this AP exam. Okay. The first one is a multiple choice section. It is 55 questions, 55 minutes. If you do the math on that, that is 1 minute per question. Okay. Often, thanks, Thea. Go back. Okay. Oftentimes, these questions will be bumped with like an article of some sort. All right, give me 1 second here. Sorry, dog. Okay, so oftentimes these questions will come in sets of like 2 or 3 that go along with like a primary source of some sort that or a document that you have to kind of decompress. So just like timing yourself 1 minute per question is not really accurate, but keep in mind, right? Like that pace is about a minute per question. So if you're about halfway through the test, you should, like halfway through the multiple choice section, you should be about halfway through that 15-minute period. You should be right at about like 25 minutes or so, okay? So keep that in mind for your own pacing and don't let that get away from you. The multiple choice section is a big chunk of the score. It is 40% of the exam score. That's a big chunk. The vast majority outside of the essays, right? Everything else is there. Again, it's critical that you do know your material. This is where the content comes into play. Multiple choice does test more actual information than it does testing kind of your depth of information. So just having a really good spackling of like sequence of events is really, really a great way to study for the multiple choice. Also in section 1 is part B, which is the short answer questions section. Okay. These are not considered essays, and we'll review the short answers later in this presentation as well. But these are not considered essays. They are short answer questions for a reason. 2 of them will be required, meaning that you don't have a choice of what you answer. And then the third, you will have a choice between 2 different options. You do have a writing time of 40 minutes to answer 3 questions total, and it is 20% of the exam score. Then we move on into what we used to call the free response section. This is section number 2, where you do have a lot more writing. Okay. The way I like to see this test is like, hey, in multiple choice, I get to kind of review all of the things that I've already like kind of stuffed into my brain and maybe even like refresh my memory a little bit before I get into the essay section and potentially use those things on section 2 as I tackle the essays, right? Maybe there's a concrete detail within the multiple choices sections that I can pull out that I'm like, oh yeah, that's a great point, and I can use it in my DPQ. So that's kind of how I like demystify the test a little bit. Otherwise, it seems too scary. So in section 2, you have both a document-based question and a long essay. Type in the chat for me, guys. Which one do you guys dislike most? The DBQ or the long essay? There's no right or wrong answer here. DBQ. Okay. So nobody likes the DBQ, is that right? Okay. LEQ, some LEQ votes here. All right. Fair. They are both daunting. Okay. The DBQ, it's kind of like an open book test, and that's how I would treat it. You do have an hour is what my recommendation is. So when you get to section 2, you have a full period of an hour and 40 minutes to complete both the DBQ and the essay. You have to manage your time. So make sure that you're wearing a watch or you've got one on the wall, or a clock on the wall that you're looking at. Manage your time. This is section 2 is all about time management. Okay. I see a lot of students start scrambling and running out of time because they spent too much time on the DPQ and then not enough time on the LEQ, and then they're scrambling at the end, right? You want to go in with a game plan. We'll leave you today with that game plan as you walk into the test in 2 weeks. I think it's 2 weeks, yeah. So my recommendation is an hour for the DBQ. That includes a 15-minute document reading period. That is a 15-minute period right at the hour and 40, right at the beginning of the hour and 40 block, where all you're allowed to do is read the documents, right? Like, so you're not even opening up the packet where you will start writing down your things, right? You can look at the documents, mark them up, do all of that, look at the questions, all of that, but you cannot start writing your essay. So 15 minutes, use it wisely, really make sure you are going in depth into those documents. We'll go through one together. There are typically approximately 7 documents to read and analyze. This has changed from year to year. Some years they'll throw in 8. Some years they'll only do 6. But overall, the average that I've seen over the last 15 to 20 years is about 7 documents on the test. It is a big chunk of your exam score. Amongst all of the essays, the DBQ is worth the most. It is 25% of your entire test score. So if you had to pick one, focus on the DBQ, but let's hope that you can get to both, okay? The long essay, LEQ, is equally daunting because then you don't have, it's not an open book test, right? Like, it's all from memory. And notice how it comes all the way at the very end, which I love, because then I've got, hey, the multiple choices giving me hints and clues and like things to remember, like refreshing my memory, almost like a quiz master. And then the DBQ is giving me documents to kind of like really clarify things in timelines potentially. And then I get to the LEQ, right? The nice thing about the LEQ is that you get to choose. So they will give you 3 essay options between 3 different time periods. This is really important, especially play into your strengths. If you really feel like, hey, I love, the 1800s, great. Then you know that there's going to be an answer, like a question, an LEQ question on the 1800s, right? Play into your strengths of where you like history most. There's no historian out there that will ever say like, oh, I love all of history. That's not true. We always have our favorite periods of time in history. We all have our favorite subjects in history. Lean into them, right? There's just things in history that speak to us, certain events that made us go, huh, that's interesting. Lean into that as much as possible, right? And, oftentimes for the LEQ, this is not always, but oftentimes I will see an essay question on women's history as well. Okay, so that is a special topic within APUSH. Women's history and all of that is definitely a special topic. And for some people, they are super interested in what happened with the women's history, right? And so lean into that if that's also your thing. The LEQ is 15% of your exam score. I only recommend 40 minutes, right? Spend the time on the DBQ, reading the documents, writing the essay. The LEQ, that leaves you about 40 minutes there. That's plenty of time to plan out an essay and get it written, as long as you have a plan. And we'll kind of go over that in a minute. But remember, the LEQ is a full essay. They do want to see that conclusion. So if you are stuck in between, hey, I want to put in one more example, or I want to get to the conclusion, get to the conclusion. Okay. All right. And I'll explain a little bit more why when we talk about the essays. Scoring. Overall, all APs are scored on a 1 through 5 scale. A 3 or higher is considered passing, and depending on the university that you're applying to one day, it may or may not count for college credit, right? So every single university or college, they do have their own requirements as far as what is applicable for counting as credit towards your general education there. Some might require 4, some might just require 3. And it also might depend on your major as well once you do. So don't worry too much about that. For right now, let's just try to get you above that 3 as long as you're passing. That's fantastic. Because you'll notice here, the pass rate is usually about 53%. So about just over half pass this test. Now, I don't say that to make you worried. I say that to give you a realistic sense of expectations that if you are here and you are in this webinar and you are clearly studying, you're on the right side of that 53%. Okay. It's supposed to be a confidence boost. A lot of folks go into this test without doing a single bit of studying. Will be hard to do that, right? Because there's no way. I don't remember what I had for lunch yesterday, let alone what I learned in August, or September. Just the fact that you guys are here is already a great step forward on putting you into the right side of that 53. So congrats, everybody. Thanks for being here. So they do grade all of the essays on a point basis, and then with some complicated equation that pumps out and incorporates the multiple choice to get you a 1 through 5 overall score based on the weight as well. The essays are graded. I get this question a lot. Like, well, like the essays are subjective. Like one reader might like my essay better than the other. They do have a very strict rubric that they follow when they grade. Okay. And the essays are graded by 2 graders. So if the 2 graders are more than 1 point apart, so for example, your DBQ, if somebody gives it a 7 and somebody else gives it a 4, they will actually send your essay back into the system for regrading by 2 more graders until they are less than like a point apart, no more than a point apart. So the score that you end up getting on your essay is actually pretty true, given that they are graded by 2 people. And if 2 people have the same opinion of your essay, then it's kind of right there. All right. Okay. History is also one of the most popular AP courses. I mean, I see the obvious reasons for why, but it is, kind of like one of the humanities, right? It's not one that most people like think about, like, oh, well, like maybe I'll go to college for history. And so, like, I think a lot of folks are drawn to AP history, just especially APUSH, because hey, if you're gonna have to take a history, you might as well take it once and maybe not ever have to take it again. But like it is also one of the more popular AP tests. So I'm assuming that everybody here is planning on taking the test. However, if you guys panic and decide, no, I don't want to take the test, please. Colleges would much rather see students even try or attempt to take the test than not try at all. Even if you get a 2 on this test, at least you tried. At least you put yourself through that rigor, and on your application, it will be that way as well. To say, I challenged myself, I took the AP course, I took the test. I was willing to challenge myself that way. I was willing to take on the rigor. Sure, I didn't pass, but I chose the harder road, right? So always, always, always take the test. Questions on this before we move on? You guys can use the chat. I know we have some new folks in here, it seems like. So why is this test so hard where only 53% of folks are passing? Well, it's a long test, right? Similar to the ACT, similar to the SAT, similar to other AP tests. This is the longest test that you will have taken to this point in your academic career. And there's a reason for that, right? It really does reflect what a test is like at college, at university, all of that. So it is a long test. Be prepared for that. Sit down for 3.5 hours. Do the studying for 3.5 hours. Make sure you don't, kind of give yourself the grace to get up and go to the bathroom or like grab a drink of water. Sit down and like actually try this test full length, go through it, and see if you can't make it through, right? Build that endurance. This test is also really hard because it's not just about memorizing dates. That would be like a great breadth of knowledge, like memorizing like the time span of like 250 years in US history. But it's not just that. It's not just that. In fact, it is different from AP history, US history is different from normal US history in the fact that there's analysis. And that is the major key point between the difference of AP and class. And so that's why this test is so much harder than, let's say, a classroom file. Okay. Because in the AP, they not only expect you to memorize all of the dates, like have that timeline in your head and know the major key events, but they also expect you to be able to analyze what that means. And that's the big piece. And we'll go over that in the essays. Okay. Timing, obviously, writing an essay in 40 minutes, is not an easy task for anyone, especially when you're just given the prompt. You have to create the outline and then you go and write. That is fast writing, especially if you're, like not great at typing or you're not great at like actual physical writing, depending on how your school has it. Okay. The graders do spend a limited amount of time on grading essays. It's about 30 seconds to a minute per essay. So imagine, you write a 5-paragraph essay and they take about 30 seconds to a minute to review it, okay, and give you a score. What does that mean for us, though? It's actually a really good thing, right? Because I'll tell you, as a grader, I used to grade hundreds in an afternoon. And what it is the graders end up having to be very, very calculated. So we have to follow the rubric to the point where we're looking for checkboxes. Like, hey, did the student hit this point? Did they mentioned this point. We're just marking it up as if like, hey, like, okay, great, they got this point. And we're just searching and finding and assigning points if you got it. So that means for the student, it's very templated. Like you can answer in a way that guarantees you all of the points because the graders don't have that much time to spend on grading essays. Okay. So because they're going fast, because they are looking for very specific pieces of information in there, and if you seem to have included them, you get the point, right? So fill out the paperwork just like as if, yes, you're writing an essay, but it doesn't have to be like, the next Pulitzer Prize winning book, right? It has to be functional and to the point. And then it's mixed medium testing, so there's multiple choice and free response. That content switching can be tough, right? But again, lean into your strengths. Whether you like multiple choice, great, fantastic. You do well on that, fantastic. Use it, right? Really make sure that that section of your test is solid and that you have the content down. If you like free response, multiple choice just isn't your thing, reading questions is tough, that's fine. Lean into the writing, right? Really make sure that like, hey, okay, great, the writing section is here. I'm going to knock this out of the park. So totally understandable as to why some of this test is actually quite hard. And the 3.5 hours will fly by. I guarantee you. All right. How many of you, by a show of hands, have started content review in your classrooms already? Okay. Just one? Not yet? Okay. How many of you guys have started content review on your own? Or is this like the start of it? Okay, great. A few more. Good. Good. Making me happy here. I was about to panic. Okay, good. And then use the chat for me. How is content review going? Good, bad? This is the start for me. Good. Thanks for the honesty, Molly. This is a great start. Reading notes over. Well, okay, good. It's a lot to remember. I agree. Not well. Okay. I think it's pronounced Leah. We'll get you started tonight. Okay. It's pretty good. Past knowledge I have. Good. I feel like I'm not absorbing it well enough. Okay. Mallory, we'll unpack that in a minute. I think that if you're getting that feeling, usually what I find is when students are getting the feeling that they aren't absorbing it, they know more than they think they do. 10 line is hard. Yes. It's a lot, but going okay, so okay, great. No, like this is all fantastic, right? And for the test being like, is it exactly 2 weeks? Let's see, 1, 2, like almost 3 weeks, right? To the test. So that's good, right? So let's just call it 3 weeks and say, hey, great, I've got 3 weeks. Okay. Great start, by the way, everybody. Leah, to answer your question, a great way to start is maybe to divide up your study plan, right? To say, hey, I've got 3 weeks. I'm going to divide all 9 periods into 3 study weeks and then do it that way. Okay. Because there are 9 periods and we'll go over that soon too. So take good notes. All right. So here are the 9 periods, everybody. And you will see the weight that it takes on the exam, right? So period 1 is pretty much everything with exploration. We'll go over each of these units, okay? Very, very briefly. Again, I'm not here to try to teach you guys content. There's way too much US history to do that. I'm going to focus on the strategies in this session, but we will cover a few things. But you'll notice the weight, the bulk of it is from 1754 all the way through 1980. So units 3 through 8. Okay. That is the bulk of the material for this test. Units 1, 2, and 9 are actually not applicable for, Unit 1 and Unit 2 will not appear on the essays. Everybody breathe a big sigh of relief, right? Unit 1 and 2, not on the essays, only in the multiple choice. Okay? They will not be topics. And the reason for that is because it's just not, it's really hard to write a full, really like well-developed essay on those years in history where documentation becomes a little bit more sparse, primarily the reason why. So, So when you're focusing your studies, if you're cramming, I hope you're not, but if you are cramming, focus on the periods of, period 3 through 8, okay? Those are going to be your big chunks, all right? And there's only 5 units in there. So with 3 weeks, you guys got plenty of time. Just make sure, like, hey, say I'm going to hit period 3 and 4 this week. I'm going to make sure I get that done and then go on to, split that up, right? Schedule it out yourself and figure out how you want to study this. Questions on this? Okay, use the chat for me once again. What's your favorite period? Everybody has one, so don't tell me you don't. Even if you don't like history at all, you got to pick a favorite. Okay, Molly, I see you. Okay, somebody likes the World Wars. 4 or 5, yeah. Okay, 4 or 5. All right. I like the 1800s too, guys. I did my thesis on migration in the 1800s. I love 1900s. Like, yep, World War I, World War II. Yep, we get a lot of that too. Anybody else? Period 7, period 8. Okay. The more modern histories. Yep. Okay, good. Yep, Mallory, good point. Because of the familiar events, right? It's things that you've probably heard your parents talk about. And so, yeah. Period 9, unfortunately, it's only 4 to 6% of the test, right? So, like, again, want to master the bulk 5 periods that you can. Good. So I'm in good company here. Nobody said the revolution or at the 1700s, huh? Or did I miss it? I don't think I saw anybody say. Yeah. Okay. That's fine. That's okay. We will get there. All right. So, okay. Here's our content review, guys. Very, very brief. 1 slide per period is how I'm going to do it. Again, this is not a comprehensive study. This is, though, the big pillars. Okay. So you should be able to connect all of these ideas together, a lot more detail in between them. Do you see what I'm saying? So I'm going to give you basically the pillars to a house. You guys have to put up the walls. Okay. So take notes if you want to. Period 1, very small portion of the test, 1491 to 1607. This is defined as the age of exploration. And that's how I want you to think about it. I want you to think about it in terms of the age of exploration up until 1607. So, if you can thematically put a name to the period, it helps you to remember a lot more details of 20, right? Because then if I say, oh, age of exploration, right, Christopher Columbus, all of these things, right, start coming up in your mind. If I just said 1491 to 1607, everybody's like, huh, right? So period 1, age of exploration, okay? Keep that in your mind. Identify it as that because that'll help trigger your memory, right? Oftentimes during the age of exploration, we saw a lot of European countries come out and explore, literally explore, right? They had no purpose except to see what else was out there at first, right? But they always said that they sailed for God, gold, and glory. Please write that down. God, gold, and glory. What does that mean? Well, they wanted to sail for God, to spread their religion, usually Catholicism, right? Or they were escaping religious prosecution. Okay. So that happened a lot as well. So one or the other, again, for God, right? Oh, because hey, Europe is out of natural resources. We got to go find more. Very simple concept there, right? And then glory, so that we look awesome to our European neighbor friends, is really what that means, right? If I can't expand France in Europe because, hey, Germany's right there and Spain's right there, I'm going to go across the way and be like, hey, this land over here, this land is mine. And all of a sudden I look bigger. And so a lot of that is God, gold, and glory. Okay? Big, big, big theme of the age of exploration. Okay. It relied heavily on the encomienda system. Who remembers the encomienda system? Anybody? Yes, Mallory. See, I told you remember more than you think you did. Isabel, I see you. Okay, great. This is a forced labor system. The reason why I want to mention this, okay? This is the precursor to slavery. Notice, forced labor system. Slavery is bad. We all talk about it, whatever, right? But it's not like slavery was a novel idea. Can we just throw that out there? The encomienda system was a forced labor system as well. So it's the reason why I put it as the precursors because remember in APUSH history, they are looking for analysis and depth, not just that you know the facts. So to know that these two things are kind of connected, right? That the society is you can't unsay a thing. So it's already out there. People are already adopting this idea with the encomienda system. So really slavery, by the time it comes around, is really not that crazy of an idea. Okay. I'm not defending something. I'm just saying that this is basically what we see as like the foreshadow. Okay. And that's the level of analysis that the APUSH exam is looking at. So this was a forced labor system of American Indians. So mistreatment started a long, long time ago, from day one. Okay. So native populations did start to migrate, right? So imagine, if you will, that you moved into a new neighborhood and then all of a sudden people started to shift, right? And that neighborhood became really, really overcrowded, right? That's what's happening here, right? Like, or if you take, like, you and your friends take over a new part of the quad, and then all of a sudden the entire quad dynamic shifts. Same thing here, right? This is all about exploration, cultures meeting cultures and potentially clashing, or trying to collaborate, but also clashing. And so that's kind of what we're getting here in this age of exploration, right? Is a lot of meeting new people, a lot of meeting new cultures, a lot of different practices, different religions, right? It's a lot of like kind of like cultural shock here. Columbian exchange. Okay. You guys do have to know what this is, what they traded, who traded in it. All right. I listed a few things there. Okay. But remember, it's not a one-way street. We often tell this story of the Columbian exchange being a one-way street, like meaning like we farmed from the new Americas, brought it back to Europe. It also happened the other way around. So they brought products back to the new land and introduced them to the Native Americans there. So that, again, a lot of influence through those types of things, especially disease. Because we're awesome. Okay. And then a lot of this period of time, again, this is why it's such a small part of the test, because this part focuses on life before European contact, a lot of what the Americans were like before all of this outside influence came in and kind of like changed the world and the landscape forever, and kind of showing, okay, the contrast. The major theme here is the contrast between what life was like before the Europeans, what life was like after the Europeans, right? So, like, if you guys can imagine almost like a TikTok video to show that, that's what you need to have in your head. Okay. So, when I study for this period, I highly recommend you do a lot of point of view, a lot of like, okay, what was it like before? What was it like after? How about in this territory? What was it like before? What was it like after? Okay, now let's flip it. Let's turn it and look at it from the perspective of the Europeans. What was their life like in Europe before? And then what was their life like after coming to the Americas? Okay, again, this is not an option for the DPQ, not at all, because there's not enough documentation to be able to really write a fully like in-depth essay. That would be fair, right? And we do want to focus on the meat of US history, what we call US history. And there's no US here. This is the start of where the US came from, but there's no US here. So not really fair to test you on that in the DPQ. Questions on period one? Use the chat, raise your hand, and I will unmute you. Anybody have questions on period one? Go ahead, Molly.
What were some of the, like, would you say, like, events, like, that were important, like, that could serve as evidence points?
Look at the founding of certain towns, and I would also make sure that you have a clear understanding of Spain was here, France was over there. Do you see what I'm saying? Like, mark the geographical areas of where each European country went to. Like, Spain went to the South America. Like, know that, right? Like, exactly how far, right? Like, where did the French go? They went to Canada. They went to, like what is now today Florida as well, right? From certain parts of it. So, like, make sure you have that map really clear. And then, as far as the US history part, make sure you understand some key, like, founding of townships, I guess is the best way to describe them, right? When was the founding of Jamestown? When was, like that kind of thing. Yeah. Yeah, these are the big conceptual topics, but yes, that's a good point, Molly. Thank you. Should we know anything specifically about the French, Dutch, and Spanish in this period besides where they had territory? No, because they don't have conflict yet. That's in period two. But are you asking like specifically about like their culture or like specific names? Like, Isabella, I think it's definitely important to know like who was like the conquistador, like a couple of conquistadors that you can have in your toolbox to pull out like name drop a little bit if you need to, but that's pretty much it. And, the Spanish definitely was the first ones to go like God glory and I mean, God gold and glory, right? So understanding why they went there, is a big piece, but that's going to be pretty similar across the board. No, like territories are the best way to go for right now, right? Once they start having conflict in period two, we'll start to see that play out a little bit more. And then you'll need to know definitely a lot more about them. So, long answer, yes, eventually, but not for this period. Okay, good questions, guys. Anything else? Any other questions before we move on to period two? Like I said, these are going to be brief because we only got 2 hours. Moving on. Right, 1607 to 1754. Talk about conflict. Remember how I said every single period you have to have a theme attached to it to help with your memory? Okay, this is the Road to Revolution chapter. Okay, so exploration, Road to Revolution. You combine so many of these cultures, all exploring, all doing new things, introducing new things to each other. You're bound to have conflict. Okay, that's just human nature because eventually, like people stop holding hands all the time, right? Like they have their own personal interests, they have their reasons for why they're exploring. God, gold, glory, right? That gold belongs to somebody. And they have their own religion. So, there's always going to be points of learning, and also points of conflict. So this is where we start to see that come together. And so that's why this is really the road to revolution, right? And remember, this is US history. So we are taking everything from the lens of the US, right? So this is the birthplace, right? This is like, sure, like the US is not an official thing. We haven't been birthed yet, but this is like incubation period. Got it? And this is where our history starts, really. Again, this one is not terribly tested on the essays just because it's just not a big portion of the test, okay? We really want to test on post-revolution things. Okay, so Road to Revolution, founding of Jamestown, 1607, at the very end of the first period, leading into the second period. There's a reason why I put that there, right? Because the founding of Jamestown really puts a stake in the ground of saying, hey, this is mine, okay? And they claim it for Great Britain or England at the time, right? So like they go ahead and claim it, right? So they're making land claims on other people's homes, basically, because there are people living there known as the Native American Indians, right? Like we know them. So that can already cause some problem, okay? And then they also realized, like, hey, it's a really long way to travel to get here. So why don't we just establish something here so that we can be more comfortable? So this is really the start of like, a baby city that turns into a nation, right? And so think about it in those terms. And as they grow and as they bring new people in, space becomes more limited, resources become more limited. Why are you here? We didn't invite you, like all of these things. And so they start to settle all throughout North America. Again, this is a U.S. history course, so we are focused on what is today the U.S. And at that time, the French were still there, the Spanish were still there, right? Like the Spanish are coming in from the south, the French are coming in from the north, and so like there's still definitely a great presence as well. Okay. Hence why the international relations with the French, Dutch, and Spanish. So this period, Isabella, is where you will need to know kind of those dynamics. Okay, were they good? Were they bad? Right? Were they tenuous? Who got along with who traded with who else? All of that stuff. This period is where you really want to like kind of start John at that together. Okay. And then remember, one of the big reasons why they left was either to spread their religion, Catholicism, or to escape their Catholicism, like, and be able to practice religious freedom, right? Especially here in what is now today the US. So you do have the first Great Awakening, which is the fire and brimstone religious awakening. Okay. And there is a second Great Awakening as well, but this first one is all about like, direct communication with God. It's very anti, kind of Catholicism because of the things going on in Europe. But we don't care about that. This is US. So the response to that in the US was an overzealous kind of like outpour of emotional religious response. Okay. Mercantilism. Okay, I pay, like, let's say I am Queen of England. I paid for the ship to get you to the New World. So yeah, I better control all of the product that comes back or all of the money that is made, right? And that whole concept is mercantilism. Basically, like, I see this new territory across the ocean as an investment for my home country. It's not like for living. It's not like the suburbs or anything. But this is like, really a moneymaker, an investment property for me to take hold and build wealth so that I look bigger to the other countries that maybe are thinking about starting something not so nice with me, right? So this whole idea was really like, hey, let's use this like new land over there to create more wealth because we've run out of land and resources over here in Europe. So hence why mercantilism. Okay. Um, okay. And then yes, the British colonies were exchange of goods and all of those things, and that's really where they got to sit side by side with France, right? Because if you think about it, Great Britain was a whole ocean away from France, and now they're not. Now they're next door neighbors, and so it's giving them a lot more opportunity to have things to talk about. So now we're starting to see more, the starts of a global economy here. Any questions on the road to revolution? Raise your hand or use the chat. Go for it.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you just fine.
So, are there any specific individuals, like people, who we should be focusing on during this period?
No, I would like similar to period one, because this one is not tested too much. I would put a couple people in your tool bag, right? Of explorers and kind of city founders, right? And that's probably it.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Great, great, great. Okay. All right. Moving on. This is where we get started with the meat and potatoes, okay, of the exam. The meat and potatoes is right here. This is the age of revolution, okay? This is the birth of the US. This is the first period in time that you have to know all of the details, okay? Remember, there's 9 periods, or there's 9 periods, and 5 of them are what you really, 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 really want to focus on. This is the start. Age of Revolution and the Articles of Confederation. Please do know, like if you see this time period, 1754 to 1800, think Age of Revolution. Age of Revolution, right? This is the birthplace of the US. French and Indian Wars, also known as the 7 Years' War. Okay. This is where we see all of the conflict or the bubbling of conflict in period 2 build up. And it's going to come to, erupt in period 3 in a very revolting way. Through all of these things. Know the Stamp Act, know the Intolerable Acts, know what the Boston Tea Party was, know what the Proclamation of 1763 was, okay? Know why we led to American Revolution. I'm not going to go through those. There's a lot. There's a lot of facts. But the whole story you want to be able to tell to anybody at a dinner table is, well, then this happened, and like tell it like a TV show. Like, then this happened, and then this happened, and of course they did this next, and like that, and then of course the war broke out, right? That's the story you want to be able to tell. Okay? Know some details about the American Revolution. No major battles. Okay? No major battles. Okay? You only need to know a couple of them, but have a couple of them in your toolbox to use. Hey, biscuit, no more. Right? Have a couple of them in your toolbox to be able to refer to. Okay? Federalist Papers. You don't need to memorize the Federalist Papers, guys. Don't go that crazy. Okay? But you do need to know who wrote them and the purpose that they served and how many there were. I'm going to pause there and ask if anybody has any questions. Isabella, is that a new hand or an old hand? Okay, old hand. I'm going to assume old hand. Okay, I'm going to pause here. Does anybody have any questions on the road to revolution here? Just the revolution. Before I get into the whole other piece of the aftermath of that revolution, anybody have any questions on how we got there? Yes, Shabani. Yes, you should know specific dates, not for all of the specific events, but definitely for a bunch of them. Yes, like Boston Tea Party. Yes, Stamp Act, yes. Intolerable acts, yes. When the Seven Wars was, yes. All of that. American Revolution, yes. Be able to add a couple of the battles within your toolbox, whichever ones you pick. Doesn't matter usually, but pick a couple. Okay. I always like the crossing of Trent. Those type. Yes. Major events. Yes. You will want to know specific dates. So good question. Federalist Papers. You don't need to necessarily know all of them, but like you do need to know when they started publishing. Like basically, you want to be able to map out a timeline of how tensions escalated over time, over several years, to get to the point where war broke out. And if you can't piece together that timeline, then you got to fill it in. All right, so moving on to the Articles of Confederation. So we win the war. Great. All right, baby country, go and do your thing, right? And we did not start off on the best foot, is what I'll say. Not at all, actually. The Articles of Confederation are seen is seen as a pretty much a historical failure for democracy, but it was a great learning experience. And two major things, right? We were so scared of like another dictator, we wanted a very weak central government. Well, with a weak central government, in this case, there was no defense to other countries. There was no, you just went through a revolution. Now you're like not in solidarity in anything else. And then the other countries are like, so what did you guys fight for? So it was, at the time when we didn't need a weak central government, we have one. And that's why the Articles of Confederation never really took off. In addition to that, they had no power to tax, which also means that they had no money. So they were broke, which means that if somebody came and attacked us, we couldn't say anything about it or do anything about it because we had no money to do anything about it. So really, it didn't have any sort of power to enable anything. And on top of that, it was just kind of like a figurehead. Should I know British rulers that the people ran away at the time? You can, but you don't have to. Remember, this is US history, not European history, which is another great course. Okay. That would be like a name drop point, Molly. It wouldn't get you like it wouldn't save your score. It would be like an added like name drop point. It's always a pretty cherry on top, but it's not the meat and potatoes of your score. All right. Great. So the nice thing about the articles is that they did come out with the Bill of Rights, and that was adopted into the Constitution. So the Constitution is actually then like the first concept from the Articles of Confederation that actually survived into today's government, and that actually was beneficial, and the Bill of Rights as well. So it wasn't 100% failure. It just didn't have any teeth to it, which we needed at the time. And then with the new government, we also went into the, having the first US bank, which is helpful because then if your government has money, then other countries are less prone to attack you. Or try to bully you into doing things, and because you can defend yourself. So that was a perk then, because then we were all of a sudden left without anybody claiming us, so we had to protect ourselves. All right. Any questions on what happened after? Isabel, I'm coming to you. Go for it.
How familiar do you think we should be with the Constitution and Bill of Rights?
Bill of Rights for sure. Constitution over time, yes. There are certain articles that you will want to know, right? In the Constitution. You don't need to memorize the whole thing, but yeah, you definitely want to kind of definitely know what it says. And then the Bill of Rights, yes, all 10. You should know all 10.
Thank you.
Sure. Leah or Laya? Sorry. There you go.
Yeah. Is it important to memorize all like the amendments and like their dates when they came out?
No, not all, but there are definitely key ones that you will want to memorize. The ending of anything. So ending of slavery, the voting rights for anyone. So voting rights for women based on race, any of that. Those amendments you will want to know, but no, you don't need to know all of them. There's a lot, but there are key ones that you should know. Anything that's like a big step forward is social history, meaning somebody new gets rights or somebody's discrimination stops. That's usually the ones that you want to know.
Okay, thank you.
Good. All right. Anybody else? Moving on. Let's go to period 4 quickly. So, of course, human nature kicks in And after we revolt, we establish ourselves. Now we're getting a little comfortable, and now we want a little more space. This sounds pretty normal, right? And so, we've collected too much stuff in our rooms, and now we need the bigger room. So period 4, age of expansion, manifest destiny. This is what I want you to think about every single time you see 1800s to 1848, the first half of the 1800s. Okay. Monroe Doctrine, you have to know it. Missouri Compromise, you have to know it. Louisiana Purchase, you have to know it. Indian Removal Act of 1830, you have to know it. Second Great Awakening, focus on personal religious experience. So this is much more less of like the fire and brimstone, the fear, but it's much more like go into the woods and talk to God. And that makes sense because people are moving away from the cities at this point, right? The cities are getting overcrowded, right? So they are moving west into manifest and fulfilling manifest destiny, which you guys need to know what that means too. If anybody doesn't know, look it up or ask me a question about it. But this is what I want you to think about, right? With this entire 1800 to 1848 period is really the expansion westward. Okay. 4, we couldn't do this, if you guys remember. Before we were a nation, we couldn't do this because under British law, we had to abide by their treaties with boundaries, right? Like with the French, with Spanish, and with the Native Americans on the Appalachian. Like there were treaties there all marked up that Britain had signed us up for. So we were kind of like crammed in because they were like, well, we can't like threaten our relationship back home in Europe because of whatever you guys got going on in the game, right? So now we're not beholden to that. So guess what? We're moving so we get more space. And also as people get more comfortable, their families grow, right? They start to have more kids. Whereas before, when they just first arrived, like times are tough. Why am I going to have a bunch of kids that I have to take care of when I can barely, figure out how to feed myself? So on the flip side, this is kind of like, natural for families to start growing, to start needing more space, etc., and move west. There's a lot in this period. Who's got questions? Anybody? Isabella's on an old can. No. Anybody have any questions on this period? I know it's a favorite for a lot of for some of you is the 1800s. So important to note, Teddy Roosevelt during this time as well, right? Like start knowing, like the presidents included. The question on manifest destiny. Amazing. Okay, great. Period 5, big, big, big. Okay, so the first half is migration. The second half is another conflict, right? Which is the Civil War. So road to Civil War and Reconstruction. So I just put it all under Civil War, right? Period. Right? We need to, as we expand, then these areas need to become our territories. They also want voting rights. How do we determine what voting rights are? And that is the big question that comes up that later on leads to the Civil War. It is slavery because of the number of people there are, but then it's also representation. Okay, that was the key. And that was where the conflict was. It's like, hey, we don't have slaves. Why do you get to count your vote way more times just because you do have slaves, right? And so it was that conflict that led to, hey, well, slavery is wrong, and then all of these things. But remember, slavery was not a new concept. And notice how it went about 200, 300 years before it even became a thing that we fought over. Okay, so really where it was the intersection of slavery and voting and representation that led to this conflict of the Civil War. You do need to understand how we got there. You do need to understand all of the different steps to get there. That does include like migrating and, Kansas and Nebraska and all of those types of things. It does also involve a social aspect side, right? That slavery is inherently wrong versus not. You do need to know some big books like Uncle Tom's Cabin, right? And the impact that it had. This is when court cases start coming up. Dred Scott decision, right? You do need to understand that date as well. Abraham Lincoln, obviously. See, we start to memorize the presidents here. Emancipation Proclamation, what that did or did not do. Strengths and weaknesses of both the South and the North during the war that you will need to know. I have seen so many essay questions in the past on strengths and weaknesses of both the North and the South during the Civil War. FYI. I have probably seen that type of essay written, at least 3 or 4 times. It does come up. Reconstruction, you need to understand where it was successful and where it was not successful. Okay, again, that does come up often as an essay question. Questions. Do you know certain battles as well? Like, Gettysburg and Dres. Like, be able to put those in your tool bag so that you can pull them out and name drop. Molly, tell me what's good.
For the strengths and weaknesses, would you say like certain plans, or would it be like certain people, or like how battles went, or like just all of that?
It's all of it, right? But it's also inherently what the resources that they had and the people that they had, right? So like a strength, like it could even come down to a geography question, right? A strength of the North was that they had so much more resources available to them, like manufactured goods, right? Like they had access to more ammunition, to more clothing, to more textiles, to more food, right? They had access to that. The South did not have as much access. Even that can be an advantage and a disadvantage, a strength and a weakness, right? A strength of the South was that they knew the grounds, like they knew the territory. The North was like, this is not their home. And so they're wandering around in the forest being like, am I going in the right direction? Versus like, the soldier from the South is like, I grew up in these woods and I put my initials on that tree, like, so even that is a strength and a weakness. Why they were fighting, that's a strength and a weakness too, right? Um, the South had a lot more reason to fight hard. It was their lifestyle, it was kind of their economy, everything. The North was just fighting for people that they didn't know. They were fighting for what they thought was right. So it was like a more of a moral cause versus for the South, it was a livelihood cause, right? So like even that motivation is definitely also a reason why you could see that. Good question. All right. Period 6. We're going to move it along. All right. The Gilded Age. Please remember the Gilded Age. This is a time period of wealth. Okay. After the Civil War, we come into a period of wealth. This is a second industrial revolution, right? Manufacturing. We start to look like a world producer. So this is when that kind of reputation starts, is during this Gilded Age. Okay. You do need to memorize some of the robber barons. You do need to memorize some of the unions. Okay. You don't need to memorize too many of them, but definitely have a couple in your toolbox. Questions on this? You do need to understand, like, maybe again, a couple things that were created in the manufacturing, the second industrial revolution, why it was so impactful, why is the railroad so impactful, unique to that. Awesome. All right. A lot of people's favorite time period. To World War One, World War Two, road to World War One, World War One, the Great Depression, and the World War Two. You do need to know this time period pretty darn well. This appears on essays all the time. World War One, causes and effects. You have to be able to differentiate that and World War Two. A lot of people get them mixed up. Don't get them mixed up. Okay. You need to understand exactly what the Great Depression felt like in the US. Okay. This, by the way, I'm not sure, I can go back in the chat. Some of you guys are asking about like, how does this play into international relations? This is the period of time where you do need to know a lot about international relations. You do need to know, even though the US did not get involved in World War II until much later, you need to know why it started in the first place. You need to know that story. You need to know the cause. Okay. World War One, same thing. Again, we didn't get involved until later in the war. You still need to know how the war got started, who started it, where it was, all of that. Why did we eventually get into it? Okay, for both of those world wars, for both of them, the U.S. held off. We were not the first ones to jump in to World War. We thought it was a European problem. So what made it our problem? You need to know that. But also you need to know what started it in the first place. So that is where you do need to understand the relationships in Europe. Notice how I did put, for I think one of you asked, the 18th Amendment gave women suffrage. Big one to know. Please do know it. Questions, thoughts at the end or after this slide? Can we go back to 5 and 6? I think I missed some points. This slide deck will be sent out to you, Isabel. This is a big chunk. If you can spend a couple days studying this period alone, you should. All right, post-war, too many times. The period 8, post-war era and Cold War. Okay, this is all about tensions and avoiding World War III. Okay, so like really mapping out people is going to be huge in this one. Knowing who McCarthy is, knowing who Truman is, knowing like all of the different tensions, right? Civil Rights Act is coming out. They are protesting. They're being forward, right? But also globally, we're dealing with communism, right? And the threat of communism. So a lot going on domestically, a lot going on internationally. Know the difference between the two and notice that they're all happening all at once. So it was all, but there was also like the period of the flower child during this period, right? The 70s and all of that. Questions on this. A lot of social things here going on. Know the people, know the movements, know what's domestic, know what's international. Got it? Again, this period is a very small portion of the test. It is 4 to 6%. So very, very small, but it is the portion that students don't struggle as much with just because it is more recent history. And you've probably heard of these events from people that you know, whether it's your grandparents, your parents, aunts, uncles. So yeah, a couple of pillars, but I'm not going to review this in great detail, right? But this is the age of conservatism and technology. This is when we really start seeing technology take off to what it is today, which we all know, and looking at how that changes the landscape of how people interact and how people kind of live their lives. Because now they don't even have to live where they work, right? Whereas before, if we think back a couple periods ago, we're talking about like marking your name on a tree, and having a geographical lay of the land versus being an advantage, versus here, it's like if you can operate a computer, right? So you guys have lived this. I'm not going to go through it. But any questions on this before I move on? Again, this is not likely not going to be. Yes, Molly, I can't. There you go. Right? This is going to be where we spend most of the rest of our time. Okay. I'm going to go fast because I have to. I only have 40 minutes left with you all. But this is the important part. This is where I hope I can send you all with things to walk away with a game plan. Okay. Again, content is on you guys. If we were to talk about content all day long, we'd be here forever and we'd never even get to the test. The important part about working with enhanced prep, the reason why you're here at this webinar, is because we have the study strategies that you can't learn from a book. So that's where I'm going to spend my time. Okay. Any final questions before I jump in here? And Mark, you're still on, right? Mark, I'm going to just go ahead and promote you to panelist, and then that way you can chime in if you need to. Okay. All right. Mark is a colleague of mine, and you don't need to turn on your camera. I'm not putting you on the spot. I'm just giving you the opportunity if I miss anything. You're on mute, by the way.
Hi, everybody.
Yeah. Okay, great. Perfect. So let's go through some study strategies. Okay. Everybody, I cannot stress this enough. There's a reason why this slide looks so crazy, and I want to tell you it's worth it. I have been teaching this test for 15 plus years. This is the number one tool I use with my students. And I will say most of them have walked away with either a 4 or a 5. And I accredit it all to this. Force them to do it. They don't like doing it. Nobody likes doing it. Okay. But it is the number one thing that week of the test, it will save you. This is the thing that will save you. Okay. I like to call this my historical cake because of the way it looks with the layers. Okay. And what it does is that it organizes all of the events in history. This is a sample for one that my student did, and it was just an amazing one that she did. So I use it as a sample. Okay. This is not US history. This is European history. Concept still remains. This student is now at Stanford, by the way. So now, what I want you to do is this is a timeline, but this is a historical cake timeline. So notice how up at top you do have the 1400 here all the way to the 1650, right? So that's your period of time. So let's say you're talking about period 8 with the Civil War, whatever, right? No, World War II. Thank you. With World War II and World War I. Okay. Then you have to create the layers of your cake where you put all of the different facts and things. Okay. Somewhere on that timeline. But the key is I want you to distribute it amongst different categories: social, political, and economic. You have to put it into these three categories. I will tell you right now, the US history test, the APUSH test, they will test it to you in that way. If you write your essay as a social, political, economic, guess what? You've got your three body paragraphs. Notice, okay? There's a reason why there are social historians, there are political historians, and there are economic historians. Okay? Start from day one. Do this now. Some of you guys ask me, how do I get started? How do I study? Make this for every single period. Make this. No? No questions whatsoever. Everybody's going to have a perfect historical. Oh, Molly. Yes, Molly.
How do you make this?
You can do it whichever way you want. I have literally had students draw it out on a piece of paper and post it on their wall. I've had people do it on poster board. I have people do it on Excel. I think she did this in Microsoft Word. But yeah, whatever.
So
you. Does you want to know how I did it? I did it on my sliding glass closet mirrors in like Expo marker. That's how I did it. Yeah, but continue.
I'm just like confused on the organization part. Like, how would you structure this? Like, what about this is so helpful?
Yeah, so I would structure it literally like you have a cake layer, right? Think of a cake layer for politics. Notice how she has like politics down here. Then she has a cake layer in a different color for economics, right? All on the same timeline. The idea is that if I could go in here and I could take a slice of cake and know exactly what happened around 1475 and all of the major events. I can for cake and see like, oh well, Henry VIII was doing this thing, you know. You want these events kind of like splattered around, right? So that when you take a slice of your cake, just like I did, right? You see exactly what's happening in that decade or that year or whatever.
And for this like specific example, she just split the social into religion and Renaissance, right?
She did. Yes, because for her, there was just, in European history, you'll learn this, there's so much going on with religion that she needed to. She felt like she needed to split it. But if I had one of her US history ones, I could show you it. It was just,
Okay.
I've had some students do split out wars, though. Like, I've had some students split out, like, battles or something.
Can I jump in, Jane?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, Molly, let's take an event like westward expansion. So westward expansion can be looked at from three different directions. You could look at that as a social event, which is people seeing this feeling of manifest destiny, like the world is ours and we're moving west and we're going to take it all. Then there's the political ramifications of it. If you let a free state in, there's an imbalance in Congress. Now we have more free than slave or more slave than free. You also have an economic repercussion of it. So you can take one event and be able to kind of take the little pieces of it in each one of these layers.
Okay. Right. Exactly right. And so this just helps you categorize it so that when you go and you answer an essay question, you know where to put in those details. All right. Because they're color coded in your head.
Okay. Thank you.
Question. Yeah. Anybody else? And thanks, Mark. I don't know if you've used this with your students yet.
I'm gonna.
Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah, my smoking, it's my secret weapon for sure. For the last like at least decade, I've used this. And I'll tell you, most people don't like filling it out, but once they do, they're so happy they did. Okay. All right. So for those of you who haven't started studying, get started. This is how. And for those of you who have already started studying, get your thoughts organized. This is how. All right. Moving on. Okay. Whoops, I need to clear my annotations. All right. Okay. The other thing that you guys can do to practice, like Mark was saying, is to look at things from different angles. And one of those things is point of view. The APUSH test absolutely wants you to break down point of view. And in fact, in the DBQ, you do have to do it for at least two of the documents in order to get full points. What is point of view? It really is putting yourself in the place of the author of the document or putting yourself in the place of somebody in that time frame. Okay. So like here, what is it like to be a Southern farmer in the first industrial revolution, right? Like these are all thought exercises that you can just practice with yourself when maybe you're doom scrolling on Instagram. Do this instead. for the next 3 weeks, like just say, hey, I'm just gonna like, what would it have been like to be a slave in Georgia? And like, and just like kind of like take yourself through that, almost like an acting practice, so that you can understand that point of view. All of those little thought bubbles as you're waiting for the bus or like you're, waiting for a movie to start is helpful for you to be able to break down point of view very quickly on the test, just because you're exercising that muscle of saying, hey, I'm going to put myself in that person's shoes. And again, you have to do it for at least 2 documents on the TPQ to get full points. Okay? Got it? So that's a very simple way for you to study as well. Okay? Moving on. All right, we're going to talk about essays. Okay? Compare and contrast. These are the different types of essays. You have a compare and contrast, similars and differences, whatever, right? Like it could be phrased differently, but it's basically a compare and contrast essay. A causation essay. This is the causation. Too little, not a lot. Like you have to quantify the causation. How much did this thing impact that? How much did the Treaty of Versailles impact World War II? A lot or a little. You have to take a stand on how much. Okay. Quantity and change over time. Continuity and change over time. Okay. This is one that shows like, okay, how much have we progressed, right? In this one, you have to focus on precedence, what's called precedence, right? Just like the encomienda system set the precedence for slavery in the South. It was not a novel idea. They took it from somebody else. Okay, it already existed. Do you see what I'm saying? Usually there's at least one essay, short answer, or a long essay question on women's history. So just know. Okay? So if any of you guys like women's history, you can always lean into your strength there. Any questions on this? All right. The purpose of the essays, okay, is not to knowledge dump. It is not to show how much you know. Shockingly enough, that is not the point of the essays. That will not get you full points. What will get you full points? Like, why did I say in the beginning of this webinar, hey, if you have to choose between adding another important detail into your body paragraph or getting to the conclusion, I say go to the conclusion, right? If you're stuck with that equation, go to the conclusion. Why do I say that? Because of this, okay? They want to know the significance. This is the primary analysis difference between a regular history class and an AP history class, is the significance, what we talk about significance. So what is significance? What is the significance of knowing why these events happen? Well, it's why is the why important, okay? That's how I want you to interpret the significance of an event. Why is World War II significant? Well, why is it important? But then why is that why important? Do you see what I'm saying? So let's take a look here. I use the Treaty of Versailles too much clearly. So for example, the Treaty of Versailles led to the rise of Hitler in World War II. That's a fact. The first why, though, to explain that, is that the Treaty of Versailles was very punitive to the German nations and therefore caused a second uprising in World War II. That is fact. Both of the top 2 lines are facts, okay? That is you knowledge dumping on somebody. That is not you doing an AP US history class. The second why is you showing the depth of understanding that you have, which is the second why. Why is this important? Okay. It set the precedence for fairer treaties and the need to address root causes of conflict, strong avoidance during the Cold War. That's why. That's what you put in your conclusion to get full points. Your conclusion addresses why is any of this important? And the answer is it set the precedence for something else. It led the way to something else. That is the difference of showing your depth of knowledge in APUSH. That is the difference between a 3, 4, and a 5. At a 2, you don't even know the facts. At a 3, you know the facts, but maybe not too well. At a 4, you know enough to be able to say, hey, I'm going to have an intelligent conversation. At a 5, this is the level of a 5. Questions? Molly, is that a new hand?
Yeah. I had a question about the conclusion part, because when you look at the rubrics, there isn't like points specifically aligned to a conclusion, and that's why our teacher didn't make us practice conclusions.
Are points attached to if the student can show what this led to or the precedent. So you can work it into your essay if you want to. Typically, I put it in the conclusion, but you can work it into your essay if you want to.
So what would you like specifically write in the conclusion?
I would say, for example, like this one, right? Like I would write a whole essay about the Treaty of Versailles and the different things that it did to the, like whatever, how it led to World War II. And then I would end by, well, like, why is this important? It was because, like my conclusion would literally be that, like, this, kind of taught us a lesson and we saw fairer treaties come out of World War II to prevent another World War.
Okay.
Yeah. I typically put it in the conclusion. You're right. The points aren't necessarily in the conclusion, but the points are for if you can connect it to future events.
Mm-hmm. Would that be like complex understanding?
I'm sorry?
Like points like on the rubric, would it be like complex understanding? Like if you can connect it to future events?
Yes. And outside information.
Okay. You.
That's the difference with a 5 and a 4. Anybody else? Great question, Mom. Nobody else? Okay. All right. You guys all know what significance is now, right? All right. Strategy for the SAQ. Be direct, be concise, and to the point. This is not an essay. This is a short answer question, meaning answer it in 3 to 4 sentences. You're not here to write an essay. Okay. Answer the question, move on. In sentence form, but answer the question and then move on. You have to pick a side. Don't be wishy-washy on any of these essays. You have to pick a side. You have to have an opinion. It doesn't matter if it's the right or wrong opinion. There is no right or wrong in history as long as you can defend it. Guarantee you. Okay. And then in the SAQ, you don't get any points for sharing extra information. So don't try to be a know-it-all. Don't try to knowledge dump here. This is not the place for that. SAQ, just get through it. So this is an example of an SAQ. You're typically presented with 1 or 2 sources depending on the question. So this one is 2. 2 sources that you do have to kind of like analyze. And then you just literally respond A, B, and C. And you'll see here in the sample response, it's literally like A, here's my response to A. B, here's my response to B. Keep moving it on. C, here's my response to C. It's not one paragraph. It's not one long essay. It's literally 3, 4 sentences in each of these little mini paragraphs to answer the question specifically. By a show of hands, how many of you guys have practiced SAQs in your classrooms? Good. Okay, good. Great. Then we won't spend too much time. Any questions though before I move on to DBQ? So again, here's another. So you will have 2 required. 1 and 2 are required. You don't get a choice. And then questions 3 and 4, you do get a choice between the 2. Play to your strengths. Notice how one of them is always in the first kind of like half of history. And then like the second is post-revolution into 1800s and stuff. So it seems like most of you guys will likely pick the bottom, but just know that you have an option there, in case you need it. Great question, Molly. Typically, what do graders look for when grading SAQs? To see that you answered the question, that you didn't get facts wrong. If you get facts wrong, they won't ding you. But as long as you answer the question, then you're good. So like, for example, if you say like briefly explain one similarity, as long as you explain one similarity, you're good. If you just name it, you got a half point. You don't get a full point because it does say explain. Why is it a similarity? Right? Or why is it a difference? So they're really just looking at you answer the question in written. That's all. It's almost like a multiple choice, but in written form. That's all it is. If your answer doesn't have facts with the rubric names, you still get the point if you answer yes. Yeah. No, the rubric is a guideline for graders. It is not an end all be all. There's no way that they could put that on one piece of paper to say like, hey, these are the only things that apply. No, if a piece of evidence comes up and they can defend that piece of evidence, great, they'll take it. It's the rubric is a guideline for graders to say these are some common examples. It's not an exhaustive list. It just can't be. Now, if it's incorrect information, then that's different, obviously. Okay. Good questions. All right, moving on. DBQ. Please spend 15 minutes reading, sorting documents, and outlining your essay response. I will secretly wake up at night and know if you did not do it. It is so key to getting a good score on the DBQ, and so many students skip that. Don't do yourself the injustice. You've got the 15 minutes. You can't be writing anyways. You might as well spend it planning. Okay? The outline should include the documents that you plan on using in each body. so that you don't have to think about it when you are writing. That when you are writing, it's literally just execute, okay, and putting it into sentence form. Okay. The introduction should be fully written with a strong thesis statement. Your thesis statement should answer the question directly and show them where their map, where your body paragraphs are going to be. Got it? Make sure to identify your documents. This helps graders a lot. Remember, part of the points is, hey, how many documents did you use? If you write if you quote something and then write doc 5, as a grader, I'm like, oh, thank God. And I'm like, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? Like, I can give you that point real easy. Versus if I had to hunt for your quotes and where they came from, guess what? That's a lot more time spent on the grader. Make it as easy as possible on the graders. They will like you and give you a better score. Quite frankly, that's just the truth. It's human nature, right? And then analyze point of view for at least one document, please. At least one. Try for 2. Okay. Here we go. This is an example. Yeah.
Sorry, Jean. Can you elaborate a little bit on sorting documents?
Yes. So typically, like sorting, sorry. Oh my gosh. Too many keys. Okay. Sorting documents, right? You want to be able to say like, oh, this is a negative or this is a positive. Even if you're just like splitting into like, this is a negative perspective. This is a positive, it's like document, right? Or like find any sort of way to be able to give them a sorting, whether it's the tone of the piece, whether it's timing of the piece, right? Look at the author, right? Depending on the question, it might be like, oh, this is pre-Civil War, this is post-Civil War, this is during Civil War, right? Like that could be a way to divide it up. Find any sort of way to find similarities and differences in these documents to put them into buckets. And that'll naturally write your essay for you.
Those buckets can then end up even being body paragraphs. Bucket 1 is anti-immigrant. Bucket 2 is the immigrant experience. Now I've got 2 body paragraphs.
Exactly. All right, Molly, you're up.
For DBQs, this is also like a teacher question because our teacher specifically said to not name the document, saying like in document 1 this has happened. Like instead, right? Like in the Treaty of Versailles, like this was mentioned. Like which one do you think would be like better?
Either way is fine. Either way is fine. That might be a teacher preference. Either way is fine. What I tend to have my students do is if they quote from a document that they put in parentheses, doc 5, doc 2, right after the quote.
Okay.
Even if they say in the Treaty of Versailles, it says this, I have them put doc 5. And that to me is just how I have my students do it because it's easier on the graders.
And would you recommend like actually quoting from the document or just mentioning what the document says?
Either. It depends on the document to make it appropriate. Some documents are very quotable. Sometimes they're pictures.
Okay.
What are you going to do? So it really just depends on the documents that you get on whether or not you quote from it or you summarize or you like extrapolate what the picture means, like all of that kind of thing. It just depends on the document.
Okay.
But if you use it, I usually put like in parentheses, like doc, whatever. And that to me is really helpful for graders. And they've never knocked you down for it. It won't get you a point for anything. Isabel. Yeah.
So I have a question about the possible image questions. Will there be image questions on the multiple choice too?
Yes. Was that it?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Yeah, good question though. Yes, you could get images in multiple choice as well. You can get it through the images. Is it Anya?
Anaya?
Anaya. Okay, sorry.
It's okay. My question is, so for me personally, my main goal for the exam is to memorize as I'm studying. Like I know I have to write notes, look at videos and everything, but what is the best way to memorize the words so that the date of the exam I'm not worrying and I'm not stressing out about what I didn't remember?
Repeat that for me.
My question is, what is the best way to memorize everything that I'm learning from centuries ago, from probably a few decades ago?
It depends. I don't think that there's the right answer for across the board. Some people are visual learners and they prefer to get written down 100 times or see it on a timeline, and that helps them. Others are
Okay.
auditory. They need to hear it. I think, however you would memorize anything else, for you that you have found works is the best way. Some people like flashcards, some people hate that. So, like I would go with what you think works best for you. That is my best answer in this very generic situation, not knowing anything else about you. But yeah, like for me, the cake has always helped because I get a visual format of it and I get to see it all stacked in one go. And that's really helpful for me to like not mix up any sort of dates.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Some people use colors, some people, I don't know. Mark, do you have anything to say there?
Well, I like your cake. I mean, I think that helps, helps you know what came first, what can't. If you're memorizing little disparate pops here and there, it's harder to grab onto things. But if you think this led to this, which led to this, which led to this, then everything you're memorizing kind of leads you to the next thing.
Good. Yeah, some people do the sequential memorization, right? Like, and that helps me a lot too sometimes. Good questions, guys. Okay. All right. So this is like a sample of what I did for one. Okay. Like I'm not showing you guys the documents, I know, but this is kind of like the structure that I want you, oh goodness, that I would want you guys to have within that 15 minutes, right? To read and bucketize and then put together your outline. So like evaluate the extent to which the US developed a national identity between 1800 and 1855. Background on the post-revolutionary war period and need to establish the foundation of their democracy, right? Great. Okay, fine, fantastic. That's like 2-3 sentences in my intro. My thesis, notice how I wrote out my entire thesis. The US developed a strong national identity. Notice how I did not I chose to say not only did it develop a national identity. I quantified it by saying it's a strong national identity, right? This is again, the difference between a 3, 4, and a 5 is how you quantify things. Okay. This is you quantifying it. You're not just saying, yeah, it did it. Okay. No, you're saying you're coming out and taking a stand and you're taking a position and you're saying, no, like I am confident it had a strong national identity between these years, right? Due to increased government participation from the people, the construction of the canal. Notice how I dive into what my body paragraphs are going to be. Government, infrastructure, and a war that unified the country, right? And then I also, this is optional. I mentioned an antithesis, but I liked it. However, not everyone could benefit from this American growth, right? And that's my third paragraph before I say those who didn't benefit. That's my antithesis because I found documents that showed that. And then I also marked, hey, document 7, I want my POV to. I called it out in my outline so I don't forget to do my POV when I get to that paragraph when I'm writing. Because I can't tell you how many times students start writing and then they go, wait, I forgot to work in POVs. So now I won't forget. I've already assigned it to Doc 7. Can't go anywhere else, right? And then my conclusion, Molly, to your point, you can build this into your essay as well, but I typically do it in my conclusion, which is restate my thesis, restate my position, and then I look at the future. How does this set a precedence for something else? The significance piece. Question. This is the outline you want to accomplish in 15 minutes of your reading period. You've got something to do during that 15 minutes. It's this. Everybody's going to get a 5. I can feel it. Questions. How many of you guys, okay, raise of hands. How many of you guys have practiced DBQ? Good. For those of you who have just started restudying, this is a great way. Don't even write the essay, just write this outline. Look at the DBQ, read the documents, formulate your outline. It's a great way to just like get some studying in without having to put in the time to actually write the essay. This is your structure right here. And then this is also like a to-do list. It's like a grocery list. I can tell how many docs I've used. I don't have to go back and wonder like, oh, did I use that doc? Oh my God, did I use that doc? Don't waste time. Just do it like this. Okay, thoughts, questions? All right, LEQ. Some of you guys said that you guys were more scared of the LEQ than the DBQ. The DBQ is kind of like an open book test to me. You know, you have all of your evidence right there. You don't have to really remember all that much. LEQ, you have to remember a little bit more because you have to provide all of the evidence. But the nice thing is the LEQ comes at the very end of the test, which means that you've had an entire 3 hours to start triggering your memory with all of the multiple choice, all of the short answer questions, all of the, DBQ documents. Like these are all helping your memory to like come up to the top, right? That's how I see it. And on top of that, you get to choose your LEQ. So you do have some choice there. Okay. Again, similar approach to the DBQ. You just don't have documents to review, but you should still spend about 5 minutes creating that outline to make your essay writing smoother. Okay. What kind of evidence you want to use? Where do you want to use point of view so that you don't forget that as you are writing your essay? So this is like a sample. You get to pick one of these three. Notice how they are always blocked into time frames. Okay. Lean into your strengths. If you like a specific time frame more than the others, hey, really study up on that period so that, hey, we'll come to the LEQ. I know I'm going to pick that essay, right? So again, lean into your strengths where you feel most alone with your study. Thank you. All right. Questions on the LEQ. I know it's a fast end here. We've got 5 minutes, so I'm trying to squeeze it all in. Molly, you've got a question here. Is there a prompt or documents that I can look at for each time period to make the sample outlines? I'm going to put you off of mute, Molly, and ask you to explain what you're saying. That's okay.
This was a question to the DBQ part, but you said to like make sample outlines just to like think study.
Yeah.
And I was just wondering if there's like example documents or prompts I can look at to do that.
Absolutely. So you see this big second bullet on my last slide, resources? No, sorry. The third bullet point. Third bullet point, the past exam questions. That has all of the free response from the past, I think, at least 3 years, if not more. Mark, when I checked today, it was 3 years, but I know they used to offer like 10 years. So they're out there, they're floating. You can always just Google it too. That's half the time I've Googled it and I'm like able to pull up something from like 2017. Yeah. So like there's plenty of prompts out there. You can also go like if you run out of those real questions, you can always go to the bookstore too and pull off any, APUSH exam test prep book and go and try to answer those. They always have about 5 or 6 of them.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, great question. Okay. And then Isabel.
So for the LEQ, do graders look for commentary?
What do you mean by commentary?
So when after giving examples, do they look for specific like commentary points?
Yes, absolutely. You can't bring up like a detail in any essay or a piece of evidence without explaining. So if that's what you're meaning. So it's almost always like you have to include the evidence, the detail, right? And then you have to analyze it. You have to spell it out. Don't assume that these graders are history teachers. Don't assume that. Assume that they are a 5th grader who knows nothing about history. So you have to explain it. That's how you get full points.
Thank you.
That's a big mistake too. The students are like, yeah, but they're like, they know this stuff better than I do. That's why they're a grader. It's like, that's not the point, guys. The point is they want to see if you can teach it to them.
One of the things that I describe it like a magician doing a trick. A really boring trick is a magician who says, pick a card. Is it the ace of spades? They never do that. They say, I have a brand new deck of cards. I'm going to shuffle it now. Now they're all mixed up. Now I'm going to let you pick one and I haven't seen it. And they narrate to you what they're doing while they're doing it to kind of push it in your face. And so you can do the same thing. I'm going to show you an example that proves my thesis. I will further prove my thesis with my second example. Just be upfront about it and don't make them work hard.
They can't knock you. Okay. Ooh, lots of questions. Okay. Isabel, back to you. And then I think somebody else had their hand up too. I think Jennifer? Was it Jennifer?
I just forgot to lower my hand. Sorry.
Okay. No problem. Anybody else have questions? Now's the time. This is the end of our presentation because I'm just going to send this deck out to you all, or somebody at EP will. But these resources are here for you guys to put on. Question. All right. Was this helpful? By a show of hands, please. Good. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Happy to help. Okay. So I will leave with this. Get to studying. You guys have it all. How many examples should we include? And should we include a counter argument? Counter argument is up to you, how comfortable you feel about the topic. So I'll leave that up to you. It does make your argument stronger typically. How many examples? A body should probably have at least 2, maybe 3 examples for the DBQ based on how many documents you have for each. So, that's where the bucketization of your documents will really tell you what your paragraph looks like as far as the number of examples, but up to you. But for like an LEQ, like try to stick with the 2 to 3. per body. Good. I'm glad, Isabel. Absolutely. Okay. I will leave you guys here for the night to get studying, to do whatever you want for the weekend, and make sure you guys get a good score. I have every bit of faith in all of you. You guys showed up on a Friday night, so I'm proud of you for even doing that. Hopefully this helped, gave you some tips and tricks of where to start or continue if you guys have already started. And I wish all of you the best of luck on this test. I know you got it. It's gonna be great. And just, breathe. Just breathe. Okay. You know more than you think you do. And it's just a matter of learning how to format it for the graders. Okay. All right. Go forth, prosper, and thank you guys very much for attending tonight.
Thanks, team.
Thanks.